Starting us off at number 10 is the Righteous Province, which seemingly sounds a lot nicer than it actually is. Now, the Righteous Province is actually the name of an all-male cult of witches located in the islands of Chiloé. Legend has it the Brujos, which is the name of a coven of the male witches, have lived on these islands since the 1880s. Males who want to join the cult have to go through a very intense initiation process, like signing a deal with the devil, killing a loved one, and using their skin as a purse to carry a book of spells in, and washing away their baptism for 40 days. The Righteous Province members can also apparently transform into any animal they want to. Their cave is guarded by a creature that no one has ever seen before called Mbuche. Mbuche used to be human, but it's said that the cult mutilated him when he was 1 year old, and so his limbs are disjointed and his head can turn a full 180 degrees. It's unclear what kind of spells the cult partakes in, but after hearing about the initiation process, I'm in no mood for finding out.
El Hombre BUFEO swims onto our list at number 9. This next urban legend is a little bit weird and it might make you want to avoid dolphins in the near future. I mean, these cute little creatures. Well, have you guys ever seen the pink dolphin? This is a legend about a handsome warrior who was condemned to become a pink dolphin by the gods. They were extremely jealous of his good looks and they thought this was a good way to get rid of the competition. But with every curse, there is always some sort of upside. The warrior also was given the ability to convert into a man when he comes out of the water and onto the land, but he had to wear a hat to cover up his blowhole. Seems legit to me. So anyways, this man goes around town, lures unsuspected women, and impregnates them. The next day, they have no recollection of what happened, and within a few weeks they discover that they are pregnant. I guess this happens to a lot of women in Colombia because many children who are born without a known father actually have Dolphin Man registered as their father on official government records. I mean, that is just the weirdest thing ever.
At number 8 we have the Glenwood Cemetery. One of the oldest standing cemeteries in all of Houston, the Glenwood Cemetery is obviously filled with ghosts. I mean, the place is a cemetery and that's just like a ghost meetup group or something like that. A place where lonely ghosts can find friends, find love, or find out that even after they die, nobody likes them. But there's been one ghost that has been seen many times. It's said to be the previous owner of the cemetery. In this legend, the owner was brutally murdered on the cemetery grounds and his killer was never caught. He now roams alone at night trying to find out who took his life, or maybe blame the death on some unexpected victim.
Making our way down the list, number 7, we have white enamel. And no, I'm not talking about tooth enamel here. White enamel is a name of an online game that is said to be cursed. In this game, you walk around an abandoned insane asylum. I don't think there's any other purpose to this game other than to terrify the players. While you play the game, you can hear an old man singing eerily in the background. That alone will send shivers down your spine. The scariest part is that apparently the game leaves players feeling sick and disoriented. If you play the game for too long, it is said that you will get your realities mixed up. It leaves players feeling like they were actually there walking through the insane asylum themselves. If you are brave enough, go ahead and play this game, but I don't recommend it one bit.
Moving on to number 6 now there, we have Bigfoot. According to some reports, Washington has the highest number of Bigfoot sightings at 537 since records began. That's over 100 more than the second place state, its southern neighbor California. Now, in case you don't know what or who a Bigfoot is, it's a hairy, upright walking ape-like creature in North American folklore. It's said to have an almost mythical quality and dwells only in the wilderness, leaving almost nothing behind besides footprints and tufts of hair. One of the most famous Bigfoot encounters in Washington occurred in 1924 near Mount St. Helens. A group of gold prospectors claimed to have fought a group of 7-foot-tall Bigfoots who threw boulders at them. They said these giant creatures moved like humans but must have weighed over 400 pounds. One of the men fired his gun at the creatures, toppling one off a cliff. That night they heard huge stones slamming against their cabin and felt giant bodies hitting against the walls and doors. As you already know, this certainly wasn't the first Bigfoot encounter in the state of Washington.
Coming at number 5 is the Puechen, which is the second snake-like creature on this list. This creature lives towards the southern part of Chile and is a shape-shifting creature that can instantaneously change into whatever animal form it desires. Its most common form is described as a huge flying snake, which makes very strange and eerie whistling sounds. As I'm describing it, I'm trying to imagine how it looks into existence, but it just keeps turning out like something that looks like a Pokemon in my head, so I'm just gonna stop right there. If any unlucky bystanders bystander accidentally makes eye contact with it, the Puechan paralyzes its victim and then sucks their blood out. A lot of times when sheep have been attacked during the night, people believe it's the Puechan sucking their blood as well. The only people said to be able to get rid of it are the Machi, which are the Mapuche medicine women, which are traditional healers or religious leaders found throughout Chile and Argentina. So basically this thing is a part-time snake, full-time vampire shapeshifter. Good to know.
La Tunda breaks onto this list at number 4. If you explore the Colombian jungles, you might come across a woman with a wooden leg. Well, if you see that, make sure you guys be aware. I would just turn around. She is capable of shapeshifting into someone that you know, so that she can lure you further into the jungle. And once you're in her mercy, she will feed you shrimp that she has prepared especially just for you. Okay, that doesn't sound so awful, does it? Well, I mean, I'd rather prefer chicken, but I'll take the free shrimp any day. Well, while you're eating, she hypnotizes you so that she can do whatever she wants. She mostly likes to suck on all of your blood or devour you like a wild animal. So yeah, I guess it's better to avoid her at all costs regardless of the free shrimp, because maybe it's not worth it.
At number 3 we have Patterson Road. A secluded road hidden away in Houston. This road runs adjacent to a Civil War battlefield, and it seems like the ghosts have never stopped fighting. People driving down the road at night say they have seen glowing orbs floating through the air and have seen ghostly figures dressed in Confederate uniforms. And if you really want to kick up the horror level, then you can park your car on the side of the road, turn off all the lights, and then wait for the ghost to come and tap on your window. That sounds like a great first date idea. Oh my god, she would love it.
In our second spot, we have Death Date, another supposedly cursed website, and another website you will not find me visiting. So this website is called Death Date, and as its name suggests, it gives you the date that you are supposed to die. No, thank you. I do not need to know that. I would just end up living in constant fear, just anticipating that date. The website is creepy enough as it is. It starts off by saying, so you want to know that. Then if you pick yes, you have to fill out some personal information. Height, weight, date of birth, gender, if you do drugs or drink alcohol, etc. Then with all this information, they will give you the dreaded date. There's also a % of life past section that tells you how much of your life you already lived. Yeah, no thanks. Nope, I'm scared thinking about it just as it is.
And finally, number 1 now, we have Mel's Hole. Years ago, a man named Mel Waiters called into the Art Bell radio show claiming he had discovered an infinitely deep hole on his property near Ellensburg. He said that he tied fishing lines together and continued lowering it down the hole. It reached 15 miles apparently without hitting any ground. That's a depth of some 80,000 feet. It gets crazier though. Mel claimed that the hole had the ability to restore life to dead animals. You heard me. He told the story of a man's dead dog that was thrown into the pit and then found walking around alive soon after. People became obsessed with finding this hole, but Mel refused to tell people where it was. A while later, a local paper reported that no man named Mel Waiters even existed in the area, and Mel wasn't even around to defend his own existence, as he was never heard from again. Fell down the hole. Who knows? The whole thing is very strange.
And at number 10, we have El SILBON. In this urban legend, we have a very spoiled teenager. One day he ordered his father to go hunting and bring him back a deer because he was craving deer hearts, because people crave that. This is so gross. I don't know about you guys, but I usually crave things like McDonald's, like the Big Mac, no onions. I usually don't crave deer hearts. This is a little bit weird, but you know what, I'm not here to judge. So when the father returned home empty-handed, the boy murdered his father in cold blood, removed his heart and liver, and gave it to his mother to cook. I mean, what the heck, this kid is savage. Once his mother realized that the strange meat was her dead husband, she punished him by whipping and throwing hot pepper on the wounds, and then she sent an angry dog after him to continue on with the punishment. So now El SILBON, well, he's described as a thin, tall ghost who is known for his destructive whistling. He likes to carry a bag of bones from all of his victims, and if you hear him whistling, it means that it is too late and you are his next target. I guess I'm gonna be carrying around a whipping hot pepper sauce if I'm ever in a Colombian forest, you know, to protect myself.
Coming in at number 9 now is El CULEBRON. Now, have any of you seen the movie Anaconda? Imagine Anaconda times 300 on steroids, and that's exactly what the El CULEBRON looks like. This creature is a massive hairy snake that has sort of a calf-like head. It lives in the countryside of Chile and comes out at night and eats basically anything with a pulse that it encounters. It's also been known to go to areas that have buried treasure nearby, so clearly the monster has expensive taste. The legend states that anyone that's able to domesticate it will gain a lot of wealth because of it. But in order to domesticate it, you have to, number 1, find one in the wild, 2, pluck out its 3 longest hairs and then put those into a bowl of milk. From those 3 hairs, 3 new snakes will be born and the strongest will eat the other 2. To keep the last one alive, the owner would have to continuously sacrifice its own relatives or animals for it to eat, otherwise the owner will get no new wealth. I mean, either that or the thing kills you first. You decide.
Moving on to number 8, we have Squidward's suicide. I'm sure that a bunch of you have heard about this urban legend before because it revolves around a well-known character from a certain show. Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants. According to an ex-Nickelodeon intern, there apparently was a lost SpongeBob SquarePants episode. While working, the intern and his co-workers received a tape with this episode on it. The tape was labeled Squidward's Suicide. The episode showed Squidward crying blood while sitting on the edge of his bed. On top of that, creepy music played in the background and images of dead children flashed on the screen. The video ends when Squidward shoots himself. Authorities were given the footage to investigate, but they found no leads.
At number 7, we have jail for too much support. This story seems so bizarre on so many levels. Apparently back in 2014, there was a guy whose only crime was caring too much. I didn't know you could go to jail in Houston for that. I better not hang out with too many dogs when I'm there. They would lock me up so fast after they see me call the 6th random dog a handsome prince. A story started flying around that a man named Clifford Hall was thrown in jail because he gave his baby mama too much child support. That doesn't seem like it makes sense. Like, I want to give my kid as much as possible because he's my kid, I want him to have a great life. Well, you're not allowed. You're only allowed to give him the registered amount. Now, I've read a couple versions of this story. Some people say that it's actually false and that he was actually behind on his child support payments. But a certain group of people swear that this is real and it's proof of laws of injustice against men. But that group of people is men's rights activists. So I'm gonna throw the information out there and then you choose who to believe. I mean, I've made my decision, but I don't know, men's rights activists aren't usually the most reliable. At number 6, we have the SLAINTE Irish pub. I wish there was a ghost rule book or something, because I feel like there's new ghost rules every week. Like the ghost of the SLAINTE Irish pub, who apparently came over from Ireland attached to a piece of furniture. That must have been a wild ride for that ghost. But the pub is apparently haunted by an authentic Irish ghost, which kind of seems like a marketing tactic scheme or something like that, to make the pub more Gaelic. Someone came in and was probably like, this is an Irish pub, it doesn't seem very Irish. And the owner panicked and was like, we have an Irish ghost, and everyone was like, ooh, an Irish ghost in an Irish pub, I've never seen that before. The pub also refuses to get rid of the piece of furniture that the ghost is attached to, partly because they don't want to anger the spirit, but also because the phantom has become part of the family. Oh, ghost love.
Next up at number 5 now, we have the Oxford Saloon. I found this story from a Reddit user who said that this saloon is just a few blocks down from their workplace. The Oxford Saloon is a bar that's been in the town of Snohomish for over 100 years. Legend says that many years ago, a policeman called Henry was stabbed to death there while trying to break up a fight. They say his ghost remained attached to the building, harassing guests and scaring them at the bottom of the basement steps. In modern times, the second floor of the building became offices, but they say the saloon ghost still remains there too. This includes a man in a bowler hat and 2 female spirits, Kathleen, the madame for the brothel back in the day, and Amelia, one of her ladies of the night. They say that a long time ago, Amelia's body was mysteriously found in a closet, all cramped up and stuffed in there. Horrible stuff. These days, paranormal investigators report strange experiences at the saloon involving ghostly voices and strange images that show up in photographs.
Okay, at number 4 is the TRAUCO. TRAUCO? I'm gonna say TRAUCO. Now, the TRAUCO is a humanish creature that is as small as a goblin or dwarf, and it's apparently extremely ugly. Has legs but no feet, and carries around a stone-headed hatchet, which makes me question how it even walks or gets around, but people say he can also appear as a rich landowner or a priest. The TRAUCO lives in the forest of Chiloé, and it has the power to attract middle-aged women, and once he's chosen a woman, there is no escape for her whatsoever, even if she's asleep, she'll still wake up and find her way to him. And it's a fact that if a woman does find herself chosen, then she will sleep with him no matter what. So when a single girl becomes pregnant and the father is nowhere to be found, most people then just presume that TRAUCO is the father. But he doesn't just target women, even men are scared of him. If a man makes eye contact with him, then his gaze can be almost deadly. I don't know if they die, if they become frozen, but I'd rather not take the chance.
Snapping number 3 is MOHAN. Let's travel to the depth of the Amazon rainforest where you might find MOHAN. He is an extremely hairy creature with long claws that is capable of shapeshifting, and he likes to abduct young girls to have his way with them. Oh, and sometimes he has really red eyes and gold teeth. He also enjoys capsizing boats in order to steal their bait and fishing equipment. And is it just me, or does the Amazon River sound like the scariest place on earth? It literally has anacondas, piranhas, sharks, tarantulas, now this scary creature. I don't think I'm going to be visiting the Amazon rainforest anytime soon. El Apolo Maligno makes its way onto this list at number 2. So this translates to the evil chicken. And I know this doesn't sound that scary, but trust me, you don't want your chicken to be evil. This urban legend is pretty intense. The evil chicken is an extremely mischievous creature that looks like a typical bird, except this thing is huge. It will use some sort of whistling trick in order to attract people to their hunting grounds. Once their unsuspected victims is in sight, the evil chicken will devour them whole. According to this urban legend, the only way to get rid of this chicken is to pray to Saint Miguel 9 times, or you can avoid any whistling sounds in the near future. If you hear whistling, go the opposite way.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the 3 Kings. This was a story posted on Reddit by the user FableForge. According to him, he found a recipe that will allow you to enter a place that he calls the shadow side. But he urges people not to try it as it actually works. Which I don't really understand, because then why would he post it on Reddit? Because then clearly people are going to want to try it. Anyway, the name of the game is The 3 Kings. He goes on to describe the things that you need, like a large empty room without windows, candles, a bucket of water, and a mug, a fan, 2 large mirrors, 3 chairs, an alarm clock, the list goes on. Now the steps for this to work are pretty elaborate. The Reddit user tells you the mistakes that you should avoid and how to make sure that the outcome is successful. If you follow everything according to plan, you will be in this place called Shadowside. Now, he never exactly explains what will happen or what you'll come in contact with, because he says he is afraid of ruining the surprise. But he does state that you'll be able to ask questions and get answers. Honestly, I'm too much of a chicken to try this game, but I really want to know if it works.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Jake Bird Hex. Jake Bird was a convicted murderer and self-confessed serial killer who was executed for the murders of a woman and her teenage daughter in Tacoma, Washington in 1947. It's thought that he may have killed up to 46 people though. Because of his heinous crimes, he's fairly well known among people in that area of Washington, but what's made him really famous around the world is the story of his Bird Hex. After his conviction was announced, Bird was allowed to make a final statement. He spoke for 20 minutes about how he hadn't been allowed to represent himself in court and that his lawyers were against him. Then he said, "I'm putting the Jake Bird Hex on all of you who had anything to do with my being punished. Mark my words, you will die before I do." Naturally, people just sort of laughed it off, but after Bird was executed, you guessed it, people started dying. They didn't die before he did, obviously, but allegedly 6 people connected with the trial died, including the judge who died within a month of sentencing Bird. So too did one of the officers who took his first confession. A police officer who took the second confession also died. Then the court's chief clerk, then one of Bird's prison guards, and even his lawyer died on the first anniversary of Bird's sentencing. Cosmic coincidence, or was the Bird Hex really real? Next up at number 9 now, we have 13 Steps to Hell. East of Seattle lies the famous Maltby Cemetery. It's famous because it's said to have 13 steps that lead down to hell. Or at least they used to be there. Legend says that these stairs led down to the tomb of a wealthy local family. Now if someone walked down them, everything would go silent around them. When they reached the bottom step and turned around, they would have a vision of hell. People who were watching them in this moment reported seeing them collapse to their knees, screaming in terror at something they just couldn't see. The vision was said to drive the person insane. If it was children who went down these steps and saw hell, many of them were said to return almost in a coma never able to speak again. If this sounds too creepy, well, don't worry, it's been reported that the steps no longer exist. They were bulldozed or filled in with concrete years ago. That hasn't stopped the legend from spreading though, and many people still visit the cemetery each year and try and unearth these steps or take a trip down to hell themselves.
At number 8 now is La NORIA, which is a ghost town in the Atacama Desert in the northern part of Chile. Back in the day, the town was a mining village known for mining and producing saltpeter, but after synthetic alternative was invented, the industry ultimately declined, the work decreased, the workers migrated, and the town basically became vacant. Because of the unbearable weather conditions, which contributed to really harsh living and working conditions, there are a lot of deaths in the city. Since it became abandoned, La NORIA has been the victim of a lot of looting, and the primary place for that is its cemetery. Coffins lie there exposed, showing people's remains, human bones are scattered absolutely everywhere you walk, and there are even coffins in old mine shafts. The legend states that all the souls buried in the cemetery have become very angry as their graves keep getting disturbed, so what do? After sunset, the dead rise from their grave and go into town, which some people have claimed that they've actually seen. Many adrenaline junkies staying in the town overnight have cited seeing full body apparitions and hearing screams and footsteps even though the area is clearly deserted. Not one thing to do when I go to Chile, definitely not.
Things get heated up in at number 7 with La Bola de Fuego. This urban legend is about a 2-meter ball of fire that rapidly rolls around on dark nights, and it carries the spirit of a cursed, insane woman. This woman was very quick-tempered, evil, and an extremely jealous wife. One day her husband asked her to do a long list of time-consuming and strenuous chores that she would probably take all day doing, so she became enraged and lost control. She stormed into the house, heard her son crying in his crib, and decided to decapitate him. Is this real life right now? After she realized what she had done, she went completely insane and she was cursed by the spirits of the hills, and she exploded into a ball of fire, which was forced to roam around the area in search of her son Juan. Some people say that when you see the Bola de Fuego, they can see an ugly woman with the headless body of a baby in one of her arms and an axe in her other. And you're never supposed to say the name Juan, because if you do, you could probably bet that this 2-meter ball of fire will hunt you down.
Moving on to number 6, we have you seen this man? In 2006, around 2,000 people from around the world claimed to have all seen the same man appear in their dreams. It all started in January 2006 in New York when a patient drew a picture for her psychiatrist of the man that she kept seeing in her dreams. Apparently, the psychiatrist left the image on her desk, and 4 other patients also recognized the same man. Eventually, a website called thisman.org was created to try and see if others too recognized him. From there, the website went viral, and they received 10,000 plus emails from individuals claiming to have seen this man. But apparently this was all just a big social experiment. But either way, it's pretty creepy.
At number 5, we have the Rice Hotel dancing ghosts. That sounds like my kind of party. A bunch of people who aren't gonna let a little death stop them from having a good time. The Rice Hotel has been reported to be haunted almost since its construction back in 1911. There used to be ghosts that would party all night in the building's ballroom. Several guests said they saw what looked like phantom couples dancing around. But the hotel did some renovations to make the place look more modern, and they removed the ballroom. But this didn't stop these ghosts from getting down and partying. I mean, they didn't stop partying because of death. You think the removal of the ballroom is gonna stop them? They went up onto the roof. People living in the surrounding buildings say on certain nights you can see the ghosts up there dancing their afterlives away.
Next up at number 4 now, we have Dryden Hall. This is a famous hall that first opened in 1965 at Spokane University. Now, despite its relatively young age, it's already gained a bit of a reputation as a haunted place within the area. The story goes that on the outer wall of the north wing, a mysterious screaming face can be seen at night. Now, initially, people just brushed it off as a trick of the lights because it could only be seen at night. The thing is though, the groundskeepers reportedly kept changing the position of the lights, but the face would always appear. These days, every single year, a new batch of students have the story passed on to them, and still the screaming face remains.
Filling in on number 3 slot is El Coco. And now if I grew up in Chile, I would probably be afraid to walk the streets at night alone alone because of this legend. Now, Coco isn't scary looking by any means, but it's what he does that scares people. Parents used to sing about him in rhymes and scare their children with stories of him so they'd listen more, but they weren't exactly all rooted in fiction. Frequently compared to the devil or the opposite of a guardian angel, El Coco is a kidnapper and a child eater. He roams the streets at night with a bag over his shoulder looking for naughty children to kidnap and eat. Sometimes it stays perched on rooftops just watching the streets waiting for kids. I mean, sometimes he eats them immediately, sometimes he tosses them into his bag and slices them up at home and drinks their blood, and sometimes he takes them away to a place of no return. But do not worry guys, he only targets disobedient children, so if you've been nice, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Why is this weirdly reminding me of a twisted version of Santa's naughty or nice list, except with a lot more death and a lot less presents?
At number 2 we have the headless ghost. At Christus St. Joseph Hospital, there is a ghost that is doing one of the greatest tropes in haunting history, walking around all spooky like with no head. There have been sightings throughout the hospital of a ghostly figure that has all his bits except for his head. Some people have even claimed to see the head on its own rolling around like some sort of morbid soccer game. Now, whether this ghost is real or not, there is some evidence that make this story much more frightening. Back in 2003, a medical student by the name of Hitoshi Nikado got his head stuck in a malfunctioning elevator and was decapitated. This is frightening on so many levels. The first being that this makes this tale of a headless ghost so much more real, and the other being that you can get decapitated by an elevator. I didn't even know that was something I should be afraid of. Now this is a new thing, now I'm scared of elevators now.
El BORARO bites its way into this list at number 1. This ugly creature has backwards feet that are used to confuse its prey. He is extremely tall, has pale skin, but is covered with black fur. He has large ears, red eyes, and huge fangs. This definitely doesn't sound like a creature that I would want to run into. So basically El BORARO will use 2 ways to kill his victims. First, he will use his urine, which acts like a lethal poison. And secondly, if he manages to catch you, he will use his arms to squeeze your body into a pulp, and then he'll drink you through a small hole that he makes in his victim's head. But luckily for us, he has no joints in his knees, so if you can somehow make him fall down, you have a good chance to get away because he can't get up.
Starting off this countdown, we have the cursed images. Who here is a fan of Twitter? It allows you to share what's on your mind, see what others are up to, and it's a site where you can view cursed images. Yeah, you heard me correctly. In 2016, a mysterious Twitter account called Cursed Images appeared and, well, they started to post really creepy images that they claim are cursed. But instead of scaring people away, the account gained a huge following. I guess those people don't care if they get cursed. Anyways, photos range from a lady playing the violin while the doctors perform surgery on the back of her head, to a series of dolls and shoes nailed to a tree trunk, to photos of clowns. Apparently, if you see these photos, you will feel disoriented, uncomfortable, and anxious. According to the page, it is said that the person running the account is the devil himself. That's terrifying. In our 9th spot, we have Abandoned Disney. Again, what's with all these scary stories surrounding Disney? People are out there trying to ruin my childhood. According to this legend, there is an abandoned Disney park where terrifying things happen. The narrator says that he decided to one day explore this abandoned park. It was filled with broken souvenirs and eerie noises. While exploring the park, he came across a door that said mascots only. This is where true terror awaits. The room was filled with a bunch of mascots hanging on the wall. He decided to take the head off of the Donald Duck costume and a human skull tumbled out. But that's not all. In the middle of the room was a Mickey Mouse costume. He tried to take a picture of it, but that's when the mascot got up and says, "Want to see me take off my head?" He then takes off his head and yellow blood pours out from his neck. The narrator runs out of the park, and the sign that used to say "Abandoned by Disney" now read "Abandoned by God."
Next up at number 8 now, we have Mount Rainier's saucer. In 1947, a pilot discovered a US Marine transport plane that had crashed in Mount Rainier National Park. After reporting it, he took off again on his journey to Yakima. Suddenly, he saw a bright flashing light in the night sky. He was worried that he had flown dangerously close to another plane, but found nobody else nearby. Then, more bright lights appeared. One of the lights passed in front of him. He described them as crescent-shaped objects that looked like saucers skipping on the water. It was this description that literally gave us the term of flying saucer. He reported the story to his family and friends, and then that story began to spread all over the country. Now, despite its fame, nobody has been able to explain what he saw that night, and if there really is something strange going on at Mount Rainier.
Filling our number 7 slot is the CALCHONA. Now, there was once a family that lived in the mountains and with their 2 kids, and they appeared to be a very normal countryside family, but that was not the case, as it never is. The mother was actually a witch, and she used to keep loads of potions and creams at home that transformed her into whatever animal she wanted if they were rubbed onto her body. So every night she used to sedate her children and her husband, which, by the way, I feel like that's a crime, but okay, and then she'd used to transform and go for a walk at night. By the morning she'd come back, apply the creams that would turn her back into a human, and then went to sleep, and no one suspected a thing. But one day she forgot to sedate her children, and they ended up waking up in the middle of the night and seeing their mum covering herself and transforming into a sheep. So, like children, they decided to copy her. Unable to change back into humans when they got home, they started crying, which eventually woke up their dad. He figured out what was going on somehow, I have no idea how, and used the creams to transform his children back into humans, but then he decided, what on earth? He left the house with his kids and threw away all his wife's creams. When the wife finally came back and discovered everything missing, she managed to salvage a bit of cream for her face, but the rest of her body remains a black sheep. When farmers in the area hear her bleating, they put out food for the CALCHONA because they know she's harmless, and she was just a witch, and it all went wrong. Now at number 6 we have HUALLEPEN, or the GUALLIPEN, and I think the 2 L's are silent, correct me if I'm wrong. It could be GUALLIPEN, but I don't think it is. I was looking at pictures of what an artist imagined this creature to look like, and I was just shook. I feel like in a drawing something can seem like it makes sense, but then when you imagine it as a live creature, you're just like, how in any world is that possible? Anyway, this creature is a cow-like creature that haunts the rivers and lakes of Chile. It has the head of a baby calf and the body of a sheep, but that's not the worst part. Its feet are twisted backwards, and the back of its body looks sort of like a seal. Are you keeping up with the imagery here? The creature only ever appears at night, and it's said that if a pregnant woman goes near it, then her child will be born with twisted and deformed legs and a muzzle. The HUALLEPEN is said to be quite a shy creature. Unless you enter its aquatic habitat, then it's known to become quite vicious. It's also been reported that if a pregnant mother has dreams about the creature 3 nights in a row, then her baby will be born with deformities.
At number 4 we have getting high in the ball pit. I guess you could say jumping around in a ball pit as a kid kinda feels like drugs. I mean, for kids it's extremely exciting. You have the sensation of 100 little plastic balls massaging your body simultaneously, but this ball pit took it to the next level. A story started flying around of a young boy named Kevin Archer who was killed by a heroin needle in a McDonald's ball pit in Sugarland. They said that he jumped in and the needle pierced his skin while simultaneously injecting him with a junkie's dose of heroin. But we all know that chainmails are packed full of lies, but they have been claimed that the story was written in the Houston Chronicle. However, the news outlet denies it ever happening. This does sound a little like the razor blade and candy kind of urban legend. Also, I don't know if you know anything about heroin addicts, but they don't usually leave full needles of heroin lying around. They usually do them.
Moving on to number 3 now, we have the trees. Olympic National Park is a massively popular tourist site for those visiting Washington. You can see why, I'm sure, from these pictures, but locals have always told stories about an unsettling feeling they get among some parts of the dense undergrowth there. Many of the famous trails are said to be haunted by a powerful unknown entity. Believers in this often point to a very strange event that took place there in February 2018. Park officials were baffled one morning to find an extremely powerful force had knocked down over 100 trees. Now, what's also strange is the fact that weather data shows nothing out of the ordinary occurred the night before. Many of the trees were also broken near the base, which would require an immense amount of force. The amount of trees that had gone down was inconsistent too. In some areas, nearly every tree was down, but in other areas, half the trees were untouched. It was a mystery. Let's hope some of you guys have a rational explanation for all of this.
Now at number 2 we have El Cuero. Now El Cuero can be found in Lake Laca, located in the Andes Mountains, but let's firstly talk about how this thing looks, because that's horrific in and of itself. El cuero actually translates to leather or the hide, and it looks like a prehistoric giant stingray, or as locals describe it, as a cowhide that's been splayed out to dry. It's about 2 to 5 feet wide and 65 pounds heavy, and it has fins as well as a whip-like tail. Its eyes are located on stalks like that of every cartoon slimy villain, and its mouth can apparently unhinge and extend when devouring prey. People have reported seeing razor-sharp claws attached to the fringes of the creature, which helps secure its victims. Locals call it the aquatic tiger because it comes out of the lake and overwhelms its prey, and it then uses its nose to punch the victim and then suck out that person's blood and all internal organs. One woman even said that she was washing clothes by the river and her baby was sleeping nearby, and the El Cuero burst out from the water and engulfed the baby within seconds. Who knew a cowhide could do this much damage?
And for the number 1 spot, we have the Jefferson-Davidson Hospital. Okay, this place is super haunted, and it's actually not surprising at all. This place isn't haunted because of all the people who died in the hospital. This place was a hotspot for supernatural activity way before the building was ever erected. The land where the hospital sits was a major cemetery twice. It was originally a place where they buried a ton of bodies back in the 1839 yellow fever outbreak, and then it was used for a cemetery for Confederate soldiers. It's unknown how many people were buried underneath this hospital, but most people speculate it's north of 6,000. That's a lot of ghosts you can see all at one time. Oh my god, they're all stuck there. You would be trying to get some rest in the hospital so your body can heal, and then there's this conveyor belt of ghosts that just keep trying to spook you every 5 minutes. You're like, God, I'm trying to rest over here. I get it. Boo, you're scary. At number 10, we have the Car Bump Gang. This sounds less like a scary urban legend and more like a cheesy concept name they had for one of the gangs from West Side Story. Like, oh no, it's Johnny Flames and the Car Bump Boys. Hopefully they don't take my leather jacket and have very outdated opinions on race. That movie's old. But trust me, the legend behind these rumors are much more threatening. Rumors started spreading about a new gang tactic in Houston. A gang member would tail a luxury car for a while until they were at a red light. When they were right behind them, they would play bumper cars a little bit and ram into the back of the car. Not too much, just enough to get the driver to come out so they could exchange insurance information. But this was all a ploy just to get the driver to step out of their car. As soon as they did, gang members would pour out of the gang car like circus clowns and then rob and jack the other person's car. Now, it's a little hazy on how true this tactic is, but apparently a group of men in 2004 used this a couple times in a string of crimes, but it hasn't been a widespread gang tactic. But if you ever get rear-ended in Houston, maybe just take the loss and drive away. At number 9, we have the Astrodome Cats. What happens to these giant stadiums when no one's using them? Do they just sit vacant, or is there a secret society of cats that take control and have meetings about world domination? Well, I don't know if it goes that far, but apparently the Astrodome is lousy with cats. Not only that, but the cats dictate some of the events that go on in the Astrodome. If an event or show comes to the Houston Astrodome and the cats don't like it, they will destroy a bunch of equipment after everyone leaves. We all know how big of jerks cats can be. It's like they enjoy watching our suffering. So if you get the royal thumb down from the Legion of Felines, you bet you'll never get another booking from the Astrodome. Now, the owner of the Astrodome claims there are no cats present in the building, but that just sounds like the cats have gotten all the way to the top and are controlling everything from behind the scenes. Don't trust the cats.
La Madre Monte, or otherwise known as Mother Mountain, climbs onto this list at number 8. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, you're wrong. She lives in the jungle and bathes in the river. But when she does, she causes flooding and heavy storms to nearby villages and cities. Madre Monte will haunt people who steal land, and she will curse them so that they don't have a successful harvest. She also hates unfaithful spouses, beggars, and troublesome people, so she punishes them by placing a lot of objects in their way when they walk through the jungle. They will eventually fall asleep from all the physical exertions, but they won't wake up. So basically, if you're good and a decent human being, she won't bother you, but if you annoy her, prepare to face the consequences.
Moving on to number 7 now, guys, we have SR 900. That's the name of this road that runs through Washington from Issaquah to Renton. For starters, people just say it's very creepy in general. The road runs through a lot of dark forests. Over the years, there's been a lot of car accidents at night there because the roads wind precariously through these dark areas with no street lights at all. If you drive along it in the early hours of the morning, there's a good chance you'll find that you're the only person there. Many people report a very very creepy feeling washing over them on this road. Sometimes this takes on a physical manifestation, like a person appearing by the side of the road as fog swirls around them. It's a golden oldie, that one. It appears everywhere. Never get tired of it. Or maybe you are.
Jumping into number 6 is El Hombre Caiman. Translated to English, El Hombre Caiman means alligator man. He had a really unhealthy obsession with watching women as they bathed in the river. So he decided to visit a sorcerer who prepared a potion that was temporarily converted him into an alligator so that the women bathing in the river wouldn't be suspicious or feel like they were being watched. The sorcerer prepared 2 potions, one that would turn him into an alligator and another one that would turn him back into a man. Well, one thing led to another. As he was transformed into an alligator, the other potion broke and spilled. So now he has a body of an alligator and a human head. And since then, women were horrified and too scared to bathe in the river. But now it is believed that El Hombre Caiman returns every St. Sebastian's Day to hunt for victims. La Llorona brings us to number 5. According to this legend, she used to be a poor peasant girl who fell in love with a rich nobleman. Their relationship was hidden from the rest of the world, and they ended up having several children together. When the girl asked the nobleman to get married, he refused because their children were born out of wedlock. So in a desperate attempt to be with the man that she loved, the girl drowned her children in the river. When she told the nobleman what she had done, she still refused to be with her. The girl was full of grief and desperation, so she actually went back to the river and drowned. But because of her crime, she was cursed to roam the rivers looking for children for all eternity. So it is believed that the weeping woman wanders the riverbeds at night looking for children to take them away. And it is believed that she is an omen of death to those who see or hear her. So yeah, don't be lurking around rivers at nighttime in Colombia.
Moving on to number 4, we have the Ouija board. Who here has owned a Ouija board? If you said yes, are you crazy? But I mean, I can't judge because I too once owned one. Not by choice. My friend gifted it to me. I think she wanted me cursed. And I was too scared to even look at the board, so I just hid it underneath the couch in my basement. But anyways, nowadays you don't even need the physical board to contact ghosts because there's a website that has an online Ouija board. Basically, you put your mouse on the planchette and type in the question in a text box. From there, the planchette will move around the board. Now, it doesn't have to be yes or no questions that you ask. People that have been on the website claim that the planchette has spelled out responses. Some others say that it spelled out their name or names of things that they only knew, which is super creepy. Whereas others just believe the website has loaded automatic responses. Either way, it's said that this website is cursed and you should never go to it. In our 3rd spot, we have Bobby. Oh, poor Bobby. Legend states that a boy named Bobby drowned when he was a little kid. On Halloween, his mother attempted to bring him back from the dead using black magic. Except it went terribly wrong, as most of you probably could have guessed. So Suzanne was a woman who lived alone in an old house. She had been depressed ever since her son died. That's when she started reading about black magic and Satanism, which gave her the idea to attempt to resurrect her child. Well, it ended up working and Bobby came back to life. But he wasn't quite the same. After turning off all the lights in the house and making his mom play hide and seek with him, Suzanne ended up tripping and falling. That's when Bobby came to her with a knife and said, "Bobby didn't really drown by accident. He killed himself because he hated the way you treated him. He didn't want to come back, so he sent me instead." A flash of lightning illuminated the house and Suzanne saw the face of the thing that had come back as Bobby. So yeah, let's not try and resurrect things, okay? And that goes for you, Dr. Frankenstein. I'm talking to you too.
Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Winged Man. By all intents and purposes, Marina High School in Everett, Washington is a normal school of some 3,000 students. Many of the students are aware though of a particularly strange urban legend there. They say that in the school, around midnight, the lights are supposed to still be on, but on some nights, the lights will just shut off. If you watch from outside of the school, they say you'll get the feeling that someone is watching you from inside, and then you'll see it, the eyes. Just a set of floating eyes. It's too dark to see a body, and then the eyes will start to glow. Legend says that if you keep staring for long enough, the glow will begin to illuminate the rest of the body. You will see a man with wings. There aren't many reports of what happens after people see the Winged Man. I imagine they just turn around and run.
Finally, last last but not least, at number 1, we have La Fiora, I hope I pronounced that right, who's actually TRAUCO's wife and daughter simultaneously, don't ask, and is an even bigger nuisance than her husband slash father. Her name actually means very, very ugly, and according to the legend, that is 100% accurate. She's described as a disgusting looking woman, that's very harsh, who has a gigantic nose, long black hair, enormous breasts, and extremely thin limbs which she can lengthen on command. She can also twist them in every direction, so you can imagine what sort of contortionist she must look like if she's in the mood for it. She bathes in local streams while combing her hair with a glass comb and then remains naked for hours. She's not very brave at all, by the way, if that's any consolation. Whenever she hears the slightest sound, she changes her body into really bizarre positions and direction. Maybe a defense mechanism, I don't really know. But no normal person can look at her, because if you do, then her eyes have the ability to deform your own legs or hands. She has superhuman strength, and her breath is so bad, like her eyes, it has the ability to break or twist the limbs of anyone or anything nearby. Her main hobby or pastime, because her other activities aren't bad enough, is casting spells on unsuspecting woodcutters in the forest, which then causes them to become super confused and disorientated, and then she forces the men to have sex with her. Right.